Please give your attention to the blackout windows as we remember the 11 million people that were murdered by the Nazis. Sobibor, 200,000 Jews were killed. Treblinka, 900,000 were killed. Auschwitz, Birkenau, 1.5 million Jews were killed. 5 million non-Jews were also killed during that period. Next one is the ovens of Dachau. The mass graves found by the Liberators. The liberation at Auschwitz. Never again will this ever happen again. Can we please have just a minute of silence? Thank you. Stand up for the color guard, please. Please join us in the National Anthem. Please be seated.
Right, straight. Forward, forward.
Holocaust Commemoration Program. Before I start, I must recognize and thank my co-chair, Karen Murata. Without her help, this program would not have been nearly as possible, and it's just an impossible task to do. My undying thanks to you for all you have done. Yom HaShoah, also known as Holocaust Memorial Day, the Shoah, which means catastrophe or utter destruction in Hebrew, refers to the atrocities that were committed against the Jewish people during World War II. Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day, is a commemorative program celebrating the power of human spirit and the enduring fate of those who witnessed and survived the Holocaust. It honors the survivors, the liberators, and the righteous Gentiles, as well as the memory of all the victims. The reality that each year the survivor population decreases substantially. This means each year we must ask, will we have the opportunity to honor them, to hear their stories live and in person? The time is now. Our days together are numbered. And at this point, if there are any survivors here, please rise so that we can recognize you.
Thank you. Rabbi, it's all yours.
The sun's going down, there's fire in the sky, it kindles a flame. Close the eyes, draw it into your heart, let it stay. Cherish the flame when the time slows down, when angels sing and peace is found, when the light of God transforms the night. We remember and keep the flame alive. Where there is light, justice grows and flows like the river of wine. All will be safe and free under the shade of the vine, under the shade of the tree. This is how we survive. We remember and keep the flame alive. To all my loved ones here in my heart, breath of my breath, part of my part, you're always with me.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
Your love burns
Ya'er Adonai panav
bright.
elecha v'yichuneka.
God bless and keep you on this
יישא אדוני פניו
night
אליך וישים לך שלום.
when his light justice flows and flows like the river of wine. All will be safe and free under the shade of the vine, under the shade of the tree. This is how we survive. We remember and keep the flame alive.
Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I'm Ehud Sella, the rabbi here at Temple Ramat Zion. Thank you for coming to remember the victims of the Shoah, to give thanks to the liberators, and to comfort the survivors. I remember the first time that I saw actual video of the Holocaust. I'd learned about the Shoah in my Jewish day school growing up. I had heard stories from survivors, I'd seen pictures in textbooks. But the images that I saw on that video, those are indelibly burned into my memory. I was in high school at the time. We were learning about World War II. I decided that I was going to write a paper about what the American government knew about the Holocaust during the war. And this was before the internet. When I went to the local library, and one of the librarians was able to help locate a VHS tape of raw footage that had been taken by American soldiers as they were liberating the camps. I took it home and put it in the VCR. There was no sound. And I just remember silence and staring at the screen, and I couldn't take my eyes off it. I was completely transfixed because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Now, I knew about the death. I knew about the destruction. I had seen photographs. But still, to see an American GI walk past a pile of starved and naked bodies that were piled like cordwood, and they were as tall as he was as he walked in the frame and out, it was simply nothing I'd ever seen before. Then to see an American GI feeding soup to what can really only be generously described as the living skeleton, who was staring directly at the camera, unblinking, with this 1,000-yard stare, as if trying how to comprehend for himself the terrible cruelty inflicted upon him just earlier by a Nazi soldier, and now the tremendous kindness being given to him by an American soldier. I'm never going to forget his face or that stare. Now, many people knew what was happening. It wasn't a secret to governments or even to some in the general public. But even as people knew, I don't think that they really understood what it meant. Before the Holocaust, there weren't even words to describe what it was. After the Holocaust, they had to invent new words. They had to create the word Shoah. They had to create the word Holocaust, genocide, crimes against humanity. And I've heard it said many times that soldiers don't fight for great principles, they don't fight for glory, they don't fight for governments. When it boils down, it says that they're fighting for the man next to them. Well, that may be true, but even so, as the Liberators walked into those death camps, and they saw with their own eyes the inhumanity that one person can inflict upon another, I think they knew in an instant why they were fighting. And I thank God that they did. Because God only knows how much more death, how much more destruction would have been wreaked if they had not. So today we're giving a special thanks, we're paying tribute to the Liberators, to the Allies, who through their courage to stand and to fight against evil actually saved many lives. Today we're honored to have a number of distinguished guests joining us. It's our pleasure now to recognize them. Joining us today we have the Deputy Consul General from France, Mr. Matthieu Clouvel, and his wife Stephanie, the Belgian Consul General Henri Vantieghem, the German Consul General Hans Naumann, from Mayor Garcetti's Interfaith Liaison, Mr. Daniel Tamm, our own councilman from the 12th District, Mr. Mitch Englander, the Assistant to Representative, our Representative Matt Dababneh, Mr. Ian Anderson, and joining me on the beam this afternoon, of course, Cantor Friedman and Cantor's Herschel Fox and Cantor Shira Fox, and also Reverend Karen Murata from the United Methodist Church of Northridge. Thank you all for honoring us with your presence today. We're going to continue in the program with the choir singing bird song. If you'd like to follow along in the program booklets, it's on page 13. Reverend Karen Murata.
Good afternoon. It's a real honor and blessing to be with you here today. Again, this is my third year, I believe, here with you all, and I'm so very thankful to be able to keep coming back here and have this opportunity to remember with you. And I feel like I've been so very welcomed, and I miss my Catholic cohort, Father David, who is in Ireland right now. So he's tall, he has lots of jokes, I don't. So, but I will begin with my reading. The reading is, "May humanity never forget." Some think of Shoah as climate change. It wasn't real, didn't happen, isn't happening. We can't ignore that at least 6 million Jews were murdered in hellish ways by order of a demented, heartless man. Images of starving and emaciated Jews still live in the memories of conscience. Star of David was more often a target to death. Survivors carried eras, nightmares, to their graves. Humanity ignores what's unfathomable. The incomprehensible must be discarded. But that's a recipe for recurrence. The Holocaust will never leave memories of survivors' descendants who still persevere to tell the story that humanity insists on forgetting. Sometimes it feels like another Holocaust looms on the horizon, and it oozes in through unrestrained, hate-carrying leaders. Forget the things we want to relive. Huge events that destroy and kill humans will also destroy humanity. Each new event will be more destructive, so never let us forget the Holocaust. This was the reading that was given to me for this year, and as I was reading it and remembering, and then as I came, I was asked by Cantor if I had any more stories from my children, because each year it seems that they come up as I'm sharing, and I do have more stories of my children, and one of those stories is our youngest daughter, Jasmine, who's 8 years old, has autism, and by the way, connected through being here last year, she got to go to Surfers Healing and surf for the first time because Karen and Megan got her hooked up. So I thank you all for that. It was an amazing experience for her to get on a surfboard and surf. But she is just turned 8 years old, and she has an app on her iPad that it's called Go Talk Now. She has very limited speech, but she understands so much, and she wants to communicate so badly. And so this app called Go Talk Now is on there, and you can load in different pictures, and you can tap it, and it'll say the words for you. So like if she wants to ask for her mac and cheese, now she's actually can almost say mac and cheese because it's her favorite thing, but you can tap the picture. She can bring it over and show me the picture and tap mac and cheese. And I know what she wants, if she can't say it. So there's all these different pictures. And right now, as she's getting older, we have a section that she's learning safe and dangerous, right? So we have these pictures in the Go Talk app, and some of those pictures for safe are like, there's a little girl sitting on a chair very nicely, right? And then a picture for dangerous is a little girl climbing under the chair being stuck, and she's crying, so that's a dangerous. Or there's a picture of kids riding their bikes with their helmets on, and that's the safe picture. And then there's a picture of a young woman out on the street riding her bike, no helmet, so that's the dangerous picture. You get the idea. There's, we have all these safe she really thinks this one's really interesting. There's safe, where somebody's walking across the street with their hand held by their parent, and then the dangerous one is just these boys running across the street, in the midst of cars, and she goes, like, for dangerous, like she knows that's dangerous, right? And so we continue on, and there's so many different ways, and she sees the picture of how there's a little boy who's sitting there chewing on an electrical cord, right? And that she knows that's dangerous. That's a dangerous thing. We don't put cords in our mouths, and she's learning how to say mouth and dangerous, and she gets the concept. But how are we ever going to teach her that it can be dangerous just to be born who you are? That's what this is about. How can we share with her that it's safe to be some people, but dangerous just to be others and be alive? Safe to be born in one country and dangerous in another. There are no pictures for that. None that I want to show my 8-year-old. And yet we're called as humanity to remember that it has been and still is for people safe to be one person and dangerous to be another just by who they are and who they've been born to be. Our God, and I believe the God of others, did not create some people to be safe and others to be dangerous. So as humanity, and as we're called together to remember this, I'm trying to teach my child that all people are supposed to be safe. All people are supposed to be protected. All people are born to be alive. As we gather together today, I don't want to have the images that Rabbi has in his head, but I've seen similar images, and I have to remember them so that I can teach my children the difference between safe and dangerous, and how we can hold on to our humanity when we create safe for all.
Now I'd like to invite up members of Temple Ramat Zion's Men's Club to share a reading.
This is entitled The Creed of a Holocaust Survivor. I do believe with all my heart in the natural goodness of man, despite the blood and destruction brought by one man trying to be God. In the goodness of man, I do believe.
I do believe with all my heart that God gave man the blessing and the curse. Man can select the curse of envy, hatred, and prejudices, or the blessing of love, harmony, and beauty. Despite the painful curses of the past, in the blessing of the Creator, I do believe.
I do believe with all my heart that God created a beautiful world, the sun and the trees, the flowers and the bees, and the best way to serve God is to enjoy the fruits of his labor of love, despite the painful memories from the past and the joyful celebration of life. I do believe.
I do believe with all my heart that God has created man in image of his own, and killing of man is like killing of God. Despite the massacres in Rwanda, the cleansing in Bosnia, the folly of Muslim fanatics and the cruelty of Pol Pot, and the love and compassion of the Creator, I do believe.
I believe with all my heart that the Messiah and the kingdom of heaven will come, when man will conquer his destructive urge and learn to live in harmony with nature and himself, when all the preachers of hate will be silenced and man will become his brother's keeper.
When man will stop killing man in the name of God, and nation will not lift weapons against nation. When it will be, I do not know, but despite all signs to the contrary, in the dawn of a better world, I do believe.
Thank you. Mr. Daniel Tamm.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Reverend Karen. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here on behalf of Mayor Garcetti to simply deliver a brief message from him. On behalf of the City of Los Angeles, thank you for your observance of Yom HaShoah Day of commemoration. Each year, families and friends gather to honor the 6 million Jews who perished, the millions more who resisted, and the allies who liberated the camps. The acts of remembrance and commemoration never end. And as long as there are new generations who must learn about this history, we must continue raising families who will listen, learn, teach, and endeavor to build a world of peace and freedom as we walk with courage into the future together. Finally, I acknowledge the survivors whose daily life embodied heroic struggle. We value and cherish the strength of your commitment to the simple joy of living. Thank you.
Thank you. The choir is now going to sing Ashrei HaGafur, Blessed is the Match. If you would like to follow along, it's on page 14. just want to mention that we're so appreciative of our distinguished guests. A number of them are attending many Holocaust commemorations today. We are not the only synagogue or organization, so some of them are leaving in the middle of the ceremony. We completely understand, and we appreciate you giving of your time on such a busy day. It's my pleasure now to welcome up the Honorable Hans Neumann.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me for a second time. I had the chance to attend last year and was very impressed that when I was invited again, of course, even though I have several events today, I said I will not miss this event today. When I prepared myself for a few words today, I thought, what can I say that I didn't say last year? I then had my answer at once when I read a book of Elie Wiesel, which you all know, which is called Night, where I have the honor to read 2 pages tonight at another event. And he had one paragraph that struck me, and I said, I have to read this little paragraph because it fits so well on remembrance days like this. He says, and I quote in his foreword to this edition, for the survivor who chooses to testify, it is clear. His duty is to bear witness for the dead and for the living. He has no right to deprive future generations of a past that belongs to our collective memory. To forget would not only be dangerous, but offensive. To forget the dead would be akin in killing them a second time. I like this quote so much because it's so true. If we remember today the dead, we also have the duty. We have the duty to remember them also for our own sake. This is very important. And if some people say, well, maybe how many years you still want to go on? And say, well, there must be an end to this remembering. No, remembrance has no expiry date. Remembrance has to go on forever and ever. And we have a duty, not towards the dead, not only to the dead, not to those who perish, not to their relatives, but we have a duty to our children as well, to tell them that once there were people that one day were taken away from their normal life with no good reasons. There were people that couldn't live their lives. You, children, our generation, the future generation, have to make sure that, and it's right over there, never ever again does something happen like this again. A Remembrance Day is also a duty to think about the value of human rights, about the value of family, about the value that everyone should be allowed to choose whatever religion he wants to choose and whatever he wants to believe in. I think it's very important as well that we try to attract the next generations, the young people. I've been talking to quite a few events like this, and I always wonder, where are the teenagers? Where are the twins? And I must say, it's our duty, our task, that we also teach them to come and learn. Now, of course, the Holocaust is not only forgotten in the country where we had most of the victims. I think one of the countries that is most affected by Remembrance Days, by the Holocaust, is the country of those where those horrible crimes have been committed. And it's not easy to also stand up and say, yes, horrible things have happened in this country. And we have to do things to teach others. And it was a long and very, very painful process in Germany until the older generation, especially those who had committed their crimes, whose father have been guilty, to tell them, and now you have to remember that these things do not happen again. And slowly but steadily, Germans realized what had happened in their country and tried to assist the victims. And yes, every generation has a different approach how to live with this past. And the younger generation, myself, who has not been born at this time, but especially my children. I have 3 daughters and tell them, and one also as well, how should I teach him? should I tell them how to talk to someone who is a the grandchild of a survivor? And I told them always, you personally, you never have to feel guilty about something that happened many decades ago, but you should always be aware what's happened, and you should always be aware that you have to work, that especially a country like Germany takes up its responsibility also in the future. And this is what I teach my children, and I can assure you there are very few countries where Holocaust remembrance is so vivid and alive as in my country. For example, I have the privilege and the honor to accompany a group of 10 rabbis from the West Coast to Germany in July to show them Jewish life of today in Germany, to show them how Germany works with this remembrance. And I know this is something it's a very difficult subject, but in a way I am quite happy to be able to show them a country where Jewish life is flourishing again, where we have huge Jewish communities in Berlin, for example, where Jewish tourists come in big numbers, and where in every city where it's possible, you do have places where you can remember. And this is why I'm very happy to be able to show the 10 rabbis I'm accompanying the new Germany. So thank you very much again for having me with you, and definitely, even though my schedule is tight, I will try to make it if you invite me again next year and share with you the memory. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite up Alberto and Ethan Hananel for special reading.
This is dedicated to the memory of a 13-year-old hero of the resistance by Rabbi Howard Kahn. When I was 13, I became a bar mitzvah.
When he was 13, he became a bar mitzvah.
When I was 13, my teachers taught me to put on tefillin on my arm.
When he was 13, his teachers taught him to throw a hand grenade with his arm.
When I was 13, I studied the pathways of the Bible and roadways of the Talmud.
When he was 13, he studied the canals of Warsaw and the sewers of the ghetto.
At my bar mitzvah, I took an oath to live as a Jew.
At his bar mitzvah, he took an oath to die as a Jew.
At my bar mitzvah, I blessed God.
At his bar mitzvah, he questioned God.
At my bar mitzvah, I lifted my voice and sang.
At his bar mitzvah, he lifted his fist and fought.
At my bar mitzvah, I read from the scroll of the Torah.
At his bar mitzvah, he wrote a scroll of fire.
At my bar mitzvah, I wore a new talit over a new suit.
At his bar mitzvah, he wore a rifle and bullets over a suit of rags.
At my bar mitzvah, I started my road of life.
At his bar mitzvah, he started his road to martyrdom.
At my bar mitzvah, family and friends came to say l'chaim.
At his bar mitzvah, Rabbi Akiba and Trumpelor, Hannah and her 7 sons came to escort him to the heaven.
At my bar mitzvah, they praised my voice, my song, my melody.
At his bar mitzvah, they praised his strength, his courage, his fearlessness.
When I was 13, I was called up to the Torah. I went to the Bima.
When he was 13, his body went up in smoke, his soul rose to God.
When I was 13, I became a bar mitzvah and lived.
When he was 13, he became a bar mitzvah and lives now within each of us.
In memory of all who fought, either with weapons or with the will to stay alive each day, and in memory of all who perished, let us say, never forget in our hearts.
Choir is going to sing Yesh Kochavim, There Are Stars. If you'd like to follow along, it's on page 14. I'd like to invite up Jeff and Lisa Whiteman for a special reading.
Today, on Yom HaShoah, we remember the victims of the greatest crime of man against man, the young, the old, the innocent, the 1.5 million children starved, shot, given lethal injections, gassed, burned, and turned to ash because they were deemed guilty of the crime of being different.
We remember what happens when hate takes hold of the human heart and turns it to stone. What happens when victims cry for help and there is no one listening. What happens when humanity fails to recognize that those who are not in our image are none less than in God's image.
We remember and pay tribute to the survivors who bore witness to what happened and to the victims so that robbed of their lives, they would not be robbed also of their deaths.
We remember and give thanks for the righteous of the nations who saved lives, often at the risk of their own, teaching us how in the darkness night we can light a candle of hope.
Today, on Yom HaShoah, we call on you, Almighty God, to help us hear your voice that says in every generation, do not murder, do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor, do not oppress the stranger.
We know that while we do not have the ability to change the past, we can change the future. We know that while we cannot bring the dead back to life, we can ensure their memories live on and their deaths were not in vain.
And so, on this Yom HaShoah, we commit ourselves to one simple act, Yizkor, remember. May the souls of the victims be bound in the blood of everlasting life. Amen.
I'd like to invite up now the Honorable Matthieu Clouvel.
Dear Rabbi Hautzelah, dear colleagues, dear friends, on this International Day of Commemoration in memory of the victim of Holocaust, I wanted to be with you today for the victims and for the descendants. While the direct witnesses of the Holocaust are leaving us, the international community has a duty to keep their memory alive so it's never happened again. By remembering Holocaust, we are reminded of the barbarity man is capable of. We are also reminded of the acts of resistance and solidarity between human beings faced with horror. As you may know, this year, this day is even more meaningful for France, as our values, our citizens, are targeted by heinous terrorist attacks. In those moments of darkness, we saw heroism and courage. In those moments of darkness, we also saw a strong show of unity of the French people. Beyond emotion, we know that now is a time for action. France and many countries are at war, not at war against a religion, but at war against terrorists, jihadists, against barbarity and extremists. It's a war for the soul of France, a war for our values, and to make sure that all French citizens, whichever their beliefs or origins, can live side by side in civil peace. It's a war especially to ensure the fundamental rights of the Jews of France to live wherever they want, free from fear, free from threats, free from anti-Semitism. As our previous Prime Minister Emmanuel Valls stated recently, France, without our Jewish citizens, would not be France anymore. Anti-Semitism has changed its face, but has not lost its age-old roots. It comes from the extremes, extreme right, extreme left, and also from the hate of Israel. We have to be vigilantes, to stay awake as citizens, as long as we haven't found the right tools to find this new form of anti-Semitism, new form of heroism too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cantor Shira Fox is now going to sing A Rose in December. If you'd like to follow along, it's on page 15.
You who gather here, crying silent tears, because you cannot talk to me. You can remember I am here though I am gone, dust to dust, life goes on. Think of me, I will be gone. A rose in December. If you remember, I'll be a rose. If you remember, I'll be a rose. Rose that blooms in December. In your thoughts and in your sight, I am eternal light. Hold the torch against the night, and you will remember. In the flame are many sparks, touching lives beyond the dark. By my deeds I've left my mark. Rose in December. If you remember, I'll be a rose. If you remember, I'll be a rose. Rose that blooms in December. So say the words that must be said, wherefore beloved, and as our precious tears are shed, we shall remember. Death and loss are what we pay for finding love along the way. A gift forever, sweet bouquet, a rose in a December. If you remember, I'll be a rose. If you remember, I'll be a rose. If you remember, I'll be a rose. Rose that blooms in December.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite up Council Member Mitch Englander.
When we started off today, survivors were asked to stand, and there were few. Too few. In fact, I remember growing up as a child, and this day would come, and like we did today, we'd ask the survivors to stand. And there were many more. So what are we doing to remember? I've had an issue for many years with the idea of a day to remember. A day to remember. I want to come back to that. Before I go there, our great Reverend shared a great story and how it, in teaching your child, there's absolutely no way as a Jewish father that I can stand before you with a microphone and not tell you about my own children. That would be wrong. So because of that, because of you, I will torture you all through this. No, it's a great story, and I think it's fitting. My youngest daughter, next month, she's 18. When she was 11, I brought the family to Israel. On that trip, we went to Yad Vashem, and we went to the children's remembrance. And I couldn't believe how it moved her, but something moved her even more. On the way out the door, for those of you who have had the opportunity, there's a room off to the side where you can go in and look up anybody on a computer and type in their name. You can type in your last name. You can type in family names. And it's all in a database now. And so we sat there for hours. She would look up any last name she could think of. And sure enough, there would be some kind of match. So after we got home, she was so inspired. She was learning the traditions and being dragged to Hebrew school without really getting much out of it, as many do today, mostly because they're on their cell phones, distracted. She decided that wasn't enough for her. She wanted to teach herself Hebrew for her bat mitzvah, and she wanted to teach herself her own bat mitzvah, rather than simply doing it at Hebrew school, that she would teach herself. And she did. And as her bat mitzvah was approaching, she said, I need to do something more, something that I got out of what happened. So she heard of a program called Remember Them. Some of you might be familiar with it, where you can actually go online, and there are several different versions now, and you can look up a child from the Holocaust that perished, so you can honor them. So she did that on her own, 12 years old, studying for her bat mitzvah. She went online and she found this young girl, Esther. She died in the camp, and she was 11 years old, not able, just short of her bat mitzvah. So my daughter decides, I'm going to research her on her own. So she takes to the internet every night to find out as much as she possibly can. She logs into the computer at Yad Vashem. She goes through all the databases, and she finds that Esther had an older sister. And she thought, wow, what if we could track her down? What if she's still alive? Her sister was 2 years older. Maybe she survived. So she went online on her own at 12 years old, and she found Esther's sister was still alive. She was living here in the United States. She was living in West LA. So she gave me all this information with a phone number. She said, Dad, I don't want to, what do we call? What do we do? I said, I don't know. Why don't you try calling? So my mistake, without thinking, she calls on a Saturday. There's no answer. She calls again in the afternoon Saturday. There's no answer. I wasn't thinking. Don't judge. Anyway. So that I said, okay, let me try to call. I call on Monday afternoon. She answers the phone. I explained who I was and what my daughter had done and what she plans on doing. And she hung up on me. She said, that is the most awful thing anybody has ever done, and hung up. I called back and I said, I'm not making this up. Please talk to my daughter on the phone. This woman starts crying and said, I'll talk to your daughter. My daughter gets on the phone and explains the whole story. I hope this is you. I've researched it. I went to Yad Vashem. I was so touched. I'm having a bat mitzvah. I want your sister by my side. I want to have a bat mitzvah for both of us together. This woman said, you have to come to my home. So we did. We drove over there. She ordered, I kid you not, I can't make this up. She ordered kosher pizza. I've never even heard of kosher pizza. She ordered kosher pizza. Anyway, we sat there and she said and told us, Esther's sister, that she found an uncle about 10 years ago that had one photo of the two girls together. And the uncle was living in New York. He had since passed, but she has the photo. She goes to her room and she comes out with a book and she brings it, and it's a little photo of her holding her sister Esther. And she says, this is all I have. Take it. It wasn't in great condition. I told her we would. We would scan it in, we would restore it, and we would bring her back not only the original, but a restored copy. At the Bima, we had a big photo blown up, standing next to my daughter of Esther. And my daughter went on and told the story of Esther and how she's now friends, lifelong friends, with her sister. After the bat mitzvah and time passed on, the photo, which was framed on an easel, was in our garage. And we were in the garage a few months later, and my daughter said, why is that in the garage? I said, well, what would you like to do with the photo? She said, I want it up in my room. I want it there forever. We should remember every day. Not once. Not simply because I shared my bat mitzvah with her. I want to always have her in my heart. Today's a day of remembrance, a day of remembrance. What did we get out of what happened? We know what we've lost. We know what we shouldn't forget. It's not enough to say never again. It's not enough to say remember. We've gotten to Kunalon. We have the ability to heal the world, to help people, to give back. What does that mean to us? You know, on the cover of the book, it kind of got me thinking about it. It says here, Liberators and Allies. What does that mean? Who are they? What are we doing every day to remember? What are we doing for them? Do you know that many of them are actually living in our community as well? Those liberators, the ones that went into the camps, the ones that lost their lives trying to save ours? Do you know that many of them are actually living today on the streets of Los Angeles? Do you know that many in the homeless population are them? We have an opportunity. We have, and I've gotten the gift to represent you on the Los Angeles City Council. Let me tell you what that means. That means That there's not a day goes by, not a day of remembrance, but a day of giving back for me to do more, to help each other. Too often, too many people in this very community come to me and say, get these people away from my home. Why are you allowing those tents on the sidewalk? Do you think they want to live there? Who are they? They're us. They're living in their own hell. We have to do more. Today is a day of remembrance from everybody we've lost and the people we've become. I think of what my daughter went through. And she tries to take a little bit of that every day to do something special for someone. That too is what it's about. It's also about living our lives differently. Having an opportunity to live. They struggled so we could survive. What does survival mean? What does it mean in your heart? Let's not have just a day of remembrance. Let's remember every day. Let's be grateful for every day. Let's continue to help others. To Kunalo. To the survivors that were here. Thank you. Thank you for what you've given, for what you've struggled through, for the sacrifices that you've made, for your will to survive, to be able to stand up before all of us, to make sure that every part of you is in part of us. And God bless you. God bless all of you. And thank you for letting me share this special day with you.
Hello, everybody. The composer of the next piece that the choir is going to perform, entitled A Better World to Live In, was very near and dear to our co-chair's heart and her mother, Karen Baitel. Her mother was Magda Bas. Her mother was a Holocaust survivor in Auschwitz. And her very close friend was an amazing composer, Walter Uhrmann. Walter Uhrmann wrote for MGM Studios. He wrote tons of music for films, A Day at the Races, you all know that. San Francisco, lots of other films. And Karen remembers him growing up. So she was looking for material for this event, and she's crying, and out pops out this piece of music. She sees music, sheet music, and it's for solo voice, and it's called A Better World to Live In. She goes, wow, those words are great. That's what we need. And she starts reading through them and says, wow, this is perfect for this event. But we have this whole choir, fabulous choir, and I wish there were a choral arrangement. I'm going to call Tova and ask her if she can make a choral arrangement. And then, what happens next? Out pops out a choral arrangement, honest to God. And she said, Beshirt, we have to do this for this piece, for this event. So I gave you A Better World.
Next, I'd like to invite up Sienna Drew and Hannah Chuba for a special reading.
Remember, and so it continues, the lies and the accusations, the never-ending, just existing, is enough. No, too much.
70 years on, the true revelations, the hate that defies logic, educate to kill a Jew. And nobody cares about the truth, reason, humanity.
We have seen it all before, over and over again. Senseless special rules, vilified, blamed, condemned, for what?
We stole a land that was stolen from us, not given back by a majority vote. When we defend ourselves from attack, it is a grievous fault. Twisted logic grows from this hate.
Boycotted, divested, sanctioned, and when we protest, they sneer and they jibe and complain. The Yids are playing the Holocaust card again. Zionists equated as Nazis. Apartheid state is the cry. The tears, though, are ours.
For the lost generations, trapped, gassed, and burnt in the death camps. There was no escape for them, or for us. Shout out to the world. We will survive. Your hatred will consume you, not the Jews.
The choir is now going to sing a Yiddish song, Soll schon kommen die Geula. It's on page 17.
This wonderful song was made famous throughout the world by the legendary Yiddish concert singer Sidor Belarski. It says simply, it could be taken seriously, but he took it in a little bit lighter vein. Let the Messiah come. And he would say to the audience, I heard him do this many times with his wonderful bass voice, and if you sing it very good, maybe the Messiah will come. So he gave the congregation or the audience just a little answer. The choir, this wonderful choir, boy, do they sing well. If I could afford them, I would have them at our shul, but another topic. He would say, Soll schon kommen die Geule, let the redemption come, and all you say is, Soll schon, okay? If you do it well, at the end of the song, I will let you know if the Messiah will come. Soll schon kommen die Geule.
Und gesammelt auf den Herzen macht mir alle Chaim. Und als der Rumet los nicht ruhen, singen wir alle. Als sie nicht doch kein Bronfen, muss man trinken Maim. Maim Chaim ist doch Chaim. Was darf noch der Eid? Ready? Soll schon kommen die Geule. Wait. You're doing very well, but most of the people, especially on this side, thought it's Tisha B'Av. That's in 3 months. So just give me a little more and I won't interrupt you again, okay? How about we start it one more time from where I come in with you? Und gesammelt auf den Herzen macht man alle Chaim. Und als der Rumet los nicht ruhen, singen wir alle. Es ist nicht da keine Bronfen, muss man trinken Maim. Maim Chaim wieder Chaim, was darf noch der Eid? Soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Moschiach komm schon mal, soll schon kommen die Geule. Soll schon kommen die Geule,
soll scheine kommen die Geule, Moschiach kommen scheine Ball. Tanzen Bäume in die Wälder, Stern auf den Himmel. Rabbi Yisroel, ich da mich guten, dreht sich in der Mie. So wird ihr aufgaben, Moschiach, von seinen tiefen Drimmel. Und der Herr wird unsere Ziele, die soll scheine kommen die Geule, soll scheine kommen die Geule, soll scheine kommen die Geule. Mashiach, scheine Wahr, soll scheine kommen die Geule, soll scheine kommen die Geule, soll scheine kommen die Geule. Mashiach, scheine Wahr. Sie ist ein Dorf von Kulechayem, seid nicht kein Aronim, aber von dem Sündigen Mashiach kommen wird. Oh, ihr tat in den Himmel, zweiten Bnei Rachmonim. Sie als Mashiach soll nicht kommen, bis zu spät. Soll scheine kommen die Geule, soll scheine kommen die Geule, soll scheine kommen die Geule. Mashiach, komm scheine Wahl, soll scheine kommen die Geule, soll scheine kommen die Geule, soll scheine kommen die Geule. Mashiach is coming,
It's my pleasure to welcome up the co-chairs for this amazing commemoration, Karen Beitel and Joe Moss.
Well, another year has gone by, and thank you all for coming. I have so many people to thank. I have my co-chair sitting next to me, who her goal all year long was just to give me a hard time. She was great at it, okay? But the end result is 100%. To the Men's Club for ushering, to the readers who read for us, thank you so much. For our guests, thank you so much. And most important, remember what this is all about. This is about remember. No, stop it. Always does that to me. Once you talk. Yeah? It's about remembering, especially the survivors. As the years go by, that diminishes every year. But more important, make sure that it never happens again. Not only for Jews, but for anybody. We've had, in the last 50 years, more genocide than you can imagine. And yet the world lets it happen. We haven't learned a lesson. And we have to do something about it. We have to learn to live with each other, irregardless of race, religion, or where you come from. Okay? Please, be good to your neighbor. Thank you.
It's my pleasure now to welcome Rabbi Mark, the president of Temple Ramat Zion's Men's Club.
Over 75 years ago, half of the earth's Jewish population perished at the hands of another Amalek, an Austrian house painter who seized control of Europe and threw the earth into darkness. God's light unto another nations flickered but did not die. A new modern exodus arose from the depth of despair and tragedy. From the ashes of Europe, survivors of the Holocaust, or Shoah, made their way towards new lives. Immigrants dispersed around the world, to the new state of Israel, to the Western Hemisphere. In these places, they began to rebuild shattered lives. In the following decades, survivors asked another question. How could yurtsites be observed for those victims whose entire families had been wiped out? An idea was born. A special memorial candle with yellow wax in remembrance of the yellow stars forced upon European Jews in the 1930s. The yellow candle was created in 1981 by the Federation of Jewish Men's Clubs in Canada, New England, and elsewhere to keep alive the memory of the 6 million who perished in the Shoah. The candle is modeled after the traditional Jewish memorial yahrzeit candle that burns for 24 hours during periods of mourning and on the yahrzeit anniversary of a family member. The candle's yellow wax serves to remind us of the yellow armband which Jews were forced to wear during the Nazi regime. A photo of on the candle container shows young people visiting Auschwitz-Birkenau. This reflects the importance of teaching our youth the lessons of the Holocaust and of remembering the 6 million. In addition, the program logo is a yellow Magen David, Star of David, outlined with barbed wire, with the word Jude in the middle. This preserves the memory of the armband or cloth patch that Jews were forced to wear in the ghettos of Eastern Europe. Many Holocaust observance programs now exist, and so we can ask, Ma nishtana ha'or hazeh? Why is this program different? The answer is profound. Each person should be obligated to light a candle for one victim in the Shoah. And on this basis, the Yellow Candle program exists, a truly unique Holocaust remembrance ritual. It is our hope that the lighting of the Yom HaShoah candle will become an annual ritual in each of our homes and for every member of our community. As you exit this evening, please help yourself to a candle for you to light tonight at home. We have both yellow and white candles. The white candles represent the non-Jewish people that were also killed in the Shoah. As in the past, we hope that you will consider a donation to assist in underwriting this project and this program. It is traditional to make these gifts in multiples of 18. The number 18, or Chai, represents life. Thank you. I also want to thank you all for coming today. And special thanks goes out to our Yom HaShoah committee, and especially our wonderful chairs, Karen Beitel and Joe Moss, for an amazing job they do every year. Thank you.
Please rise now for the Emalei Rachamim Memorial Prayer, page 19 in the booklets.
Hail Rachamim, Sholchei, Sholchei Rebamromim, Tachas Cantor אחינו בני ישראל הקדושים שנפלו בידי הרוצחים הנאציס ועזרם יימח שמם ונשפכו את דמם באושוויץ מיידנק Treblinka, Ghetto Walsche, Ghetto Vilna, Vishar Machanot Hashmad, Beropo, Shenayargu Venisru Venigberu Chaim, Bechol Misois Mishonis Veachzoriois, שמוסרו נפשם קידוש השם מגן Bitzroyer, Bitzroyer Achayim, Bitzroyer Achayim. Es nishmoi seihem. שמוי סייהם אדוני הוא נחלו
who dwells on high, grant Papa rest under the wings of your divine presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and the pure ones, who shine like the glory of the firmament. For the souls of our brothers and sisters, the Jewish people, the holy and the pure, who fell at the hands of murderers, whose blood was spilled in Auschwitz, in Majdanek, in Treblinka, and the other camps of destruction in Europe, who were slain and burned and slaughtered, buried alive with extreme cruelty, for the sanctification of the divine name. For we, their sons, their daughters, their brothers, their sisters, will contribute to charity in remembrance of their souls. May their resting place be in paradise. Therefore, Master of mercy, shelter them beneath your wings for eternity. And may you bind up their souls in the bond of life. God is their inheritance, and may they repose and be in peace. Let us all say, Amen. Amen. Please join with me on page 20 for the Mourner's Kaddish for the Holocaust. Yitgadal Auschwitz, v'yitkadash Lodz, Shemei Rabbah Ponar, ve'alma divra chilutei Babiyar, ve'amlich malachutei Majdanek, ve'chayechon v'yomechon Birkenau, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל קובנה, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ינושקה, ואמרו אמן, יהי שמי רבה מבורך, נעלם ומעלמיה, יתברך וישתבח תרשנסתא, ויתפאר ויתרומם בוכנוול, ויתנשא ויתהדר טרבלינקה, שמי דקודשה בריחו וילנה, לעילה מאטהאוזן, מכל ברכתה ושירתה דחה, תושבחתה ונחמתה מינסק, דאמירן בעלמה וורסה, ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. We conclude together with Hatikva, Israel's national anthem, on page 21.